Welcome to another endocrine feedback loop video. The subject of this video will be to discuss the RAS, or the Renin Angiotensin Aldosterone System. As is typical for my videos, you will note that there are two hormones here in this loop, and what those hormones are made of is indicated next to them. So, angiotensin is a protein-based hormone, and what that means in the way of half-life is that it's going to be enacted and metabolized relatively quickly. Aldosterone, which is known as a mineral corticoid, is going to be secreted by the adrenal gland cortex, and in the same vein as cortisol and those androgens produced by the cortex, it's going to be steroid-based hormone, aka lipid-based. The function of this particular feedback system is designed to help elevate blood volume, thereby, or in effect, helping elevate the blood pressure in the body. This is a critical hormone that's going to take place in the minutes to hours after a significant loss of blood. So, let's get started. Okay. So, as we started all of our other feedback loops, we always want to include in the upper left-hand corner the name of our hormone. In this situation, we're looking at a combination of hormones that are working collectively to have a desired effect. One of the hormones that is going to be secreted in this particular system is called the Renin Angiotensin Aldosterone System, or RAS, is going to be a hormone that is released from the adrenal cortex. That hormone is aldosterone, a steroid-based hormone, a mineral corticoid that is released from the same tissue that is known for releasing androgens, as well as for releasing cortisol from the adrenal gland. However, because this system involves more than just the adrenal gland, I've chosen to leave it off of my title. As a friendly reminder, because we're looking at two hormones that are being produced here, you will see a note for angiotensin as the first hormone. This tends to be a protein-based hormone. And then the note for aldosterone, as a reminder, it's a lipid-based or steroid-based protein. As is common, anytime I write protein-based hormone, you're going to see DIP in the abbreviation or in the parentheses as an indicator that this is going to be dissolved in plasma, and anything dissolved in plasma is going to have a faster half-life. It's going to be eliminated from the body quicker than what we expect from lipid-based hormones, which oftentimes are bound to plasma proteins to circulate in the blood. The function, again, is to increase blood volume. However, because we increase blood volume, a very common side effect is going to be an increase in blood pressure. So to start this feedback loop, and I'm going to fade myself out because this one's rather intense, we're going to start with homeostasis. I'm going to start with some key organs over here. The kidney and the liver, neither of which are known as an endocrine gland, do have the ability to produce elements that become a functional hormone. And the lungs, who would have thought that the lungs get involved in this too? So let's fade me out and investigate this feedback loop and all the complexities that lead to an elevation in blood glucose levels. Homeostasis is where the body wants to be, and in the case of blood volume, considering the critical nature of blood as a distributor of many things across the body, it's important to make sure that we have sufficient amounts of volume to transport molecules around the body. As such, anytime that blood volume falls, that is going to be our move away from homeostasis. So blood volume, when it decreases, is my trigger. Now, this is kind of cool in that the kidney gets about a quarter of every heartbeat. And because it gets a quarter of every heartbeat, one of the things that we observe with the kidney is that it's a great organ to determine whether or not we have sufficient fluid. I mean, the kidney itself functions primarily in controlling fluid within the body. As such, the kidney is going to secrete an enzyme. We're going to write enzyme up here in parentheses as a note. And what it's making is an enzyme called renin from the renal system. Get it? Okay, now That's going to be our enzyme. Now, we have a precursor hormone, i.e. a molecule that's protein-based, but it's not functional. So the liver has been silently producing something called angiotensinogen. Angiotensinogen. And a little trick here, anytime you see OGEN in a word, it's an indicator that it's an immature or incomplete form of some sort of protein that can get activated later on. As such, when renin comes over and binds to angiotensinogen, the enzyme renin has the ability to manipulate angiotensinogen into something we call angiotensin 1. Unfortunately, this is still an immature and not functional hormone yet. It's not a functional protein. However, we took that precursor immature angiotensinogen and converted it partially into angiotensin. Now, here's where the lungs get involved. The lungs are also able to make an enzyme. And so we're going to put in parentheses enzyme again as a reminder. And the abbreviation for this is ACE. Now over here we're going to write a quick note. ACE stands for angiotensin converting enzyme. So I think this system is really neat because it involves two enzymes. And ACE is going to act on angiotensin 1 and convert it into angiotensin 2. And this is the active form of the hormone. Now remember, this is the protein-based hormone, and any tissue that has a receptor for angiotensin 2 will be able to respond. All tissues that have receptors for angiotensin 2 will respond to this signal and elicit a series of effects. The effects that we can expect from angiotensin 2 are somewhat broad. First, angiotensin 2 is going to target and bind to receptors in blood vessels. This is where the angio piece of that name comes in. And when blood vessels are bound, their receptors are bound by angiotensin 2, this causes vasoconstriction. And vasoconstriction is going to function to increase blood pressure, or an increase in blood pressure. That increase in blood pressure is just the thing to negative feedback over here to an elevated blood pressure. Who's next? Well, we find receptors for angiotensin 2 in the adrenal cortex of the adrenal glands. We're going to draw this little teepee hat looking thing. It sits over the top of the kidneys. And when angiotensin 2 binds to receptors in the adrenal cortex, the net result is going to be the release of another hormone. And that hormone is the mineralocorticoid, steroid-based lipid hormone known as aldosterone. Quick tip, note testosterone and aldosterone both end in the O-N-E. It's kind of a handy little quick trick to try to remember that these are lipid-based, steroid-based hormones. Now, curiously, when aldosterone is released, it's going to target the kidney. And so I'm going to draw a kidney here because it's actually sitting right underneath that adrenal gland. And the aldosterone can then move into and bind to receptors in the kidney. And angiotensin 2 can also come in and bind to receptors that are inside the kidney. Now, aldosterone is considered a mineralocorticoid because aldosterone's function is going to be to increase the reabsorption of sodium. So we're going to bring sodium into the body. Interestingly enough, angiotensin 2 can also encourage this increased reabsorption of sodium. However, in a unique twist of fate, we also find a secretion or decrease in potassium levels. So when aldosterone is present, we start to manipulate the salts to increase blood volume. Anytime that I can maintain salt in an area of the body, water is going to follow. And so if I can control where sodium is, I control where volume is as well. But we are going to add over here to function. We talked about an increase in blood volume, but this hormone is also used to decrease blood potassium levels. And this is important in the event that this particular electrolyte elevates because it has such a significant effect on our electrical tissues. Now, there is another location where we would expect to see, draw a little pituitary, where we would expect to see angiotensin 2 with receptors. Angiotensin 2 is also going to target that hypothalamus. And when the hypothalamus is aware of angiotensin 2, one of the things it will do is through the posterior pituitary, it's going to kick out anti-diuretic hormone. So angiotensin 2 can tell the hypothalamus we need anti-diuretic hormone. And in a previous video, we looked at how anti-diuretic hormone can also influence the kidney. And the effect of the antidiuretic hormone is to increase water reabsorption. And this is done by upregulation of water channels known as aquaporins. So not only is salt being added to the body through the combined action of aldosterone and angiotensin 2, but in addition, we are promoting the introduction of water channels known as aquaporins through the signal and release of antidiuretic hormone. Also, our hypothalamus is able to detect and drive thirst. So thirst is yet another side effect of angiotensin 2. And when thirst is there, that's going to drive up our water intake. When you are thirsty, we drink more. The combined action of being thirsty, that's going to, if we increase water to intake, increase the blood volume. When antidiuretic hormones are around and we are increasing water absorption, that is going to contribute to an increase in blood volume. And if I can control where the salts are and move salts into the bloodstream, that will also increase the blood volume. This gets the body back to homeostasis. And when blood volume is in the normal homeostatic amount, we stop seeing the release of renin, that enzyme. As soon as renin is eliminated from the system, we are no longer then converting that precursor hormone protein known as angiotensinogen, and we can break this system down by no longer releasing renin. Time to sum up the renin angiotensin aldosterone system. So a key set of points to think about with this particular system is that it's going to involve a number of organs, and organs that are not considered endocrine organs necessarily. However, many organs across the body are able to release different chemicals to be able to promote and activate responses through chemicals. There are multiple enzymes that are involved in the RAS system, and each enzyme is a place by which we can break down this hormone system and interfere with the production of products. And another key point for this particular feedback system is that there are more than one hormone that are interacting in order to get the desired effect. So let's think about this. We started with the kidney, and the kidney being the thing that was detecting the low blood volume. And when low blood volume was released, this released the enzyme renin. When renin was released, this also interacted with something the liver had already been producing called angiotensinogen. This is a precursor and not active protein-based structure. So when renin and angiotensinogen get together, they form angiotensin 1. And then we need yet another enzyme to drive this process. That is going to come from the lungs, and it is an enzyme known as angiotensin converting enzyme, or ACE. ACE is the place. And when angiotensin 1 and ACE interact together, that creates the active form of the hormone, angiotensin 2. Multiple organs across the body have receptors for this. This includes blood vessels, the adrenal cortex, the kidney, and the hypothalamus of the brain. And when angiotensin is released, it has a side effect of causing aldosterone, a second hormone, to be released. Let's make that look a little more like an R, aldosterone. And in the hypothalamus, it can encourage the release of antidiuretic hormone so they can synergistically work together for the net result of increasing blood volume. And of course, the key signal to this was to have a decrease in blood volume. That's what the kidney was looking for to determine when these hormones need to be released. Now, from a pathological standpoint, or even perhaps what you may have been exposed to or may know from people that you are aware of, is that some people take a medication that is known as an ACE inhibitor. And that ACE inhibitor is used to try to keep blood volume lower in patients that already have elevated amounts of blood volume. So an ACE inhibitor literally is a drug that goes in and blocks, you know what, we should do this more savvy, blocks red. Green means go, and red means stop. Let's see if I can get our red to work for us. And so that's going to stop the ACE. If an ACE inhibitor prevents the angiotensin converting enzyme from binding to angiotensin 2, I break this system, and I'm never able to get that functional form of angiotensin 2, which then also triggers the release of aldosterone and antidiuretic hormone. So with this particular system, we see multiple places, a couple of different enzymes, a couple of different organs, and that provides an opportunity for us to break this feedback loop, this negative feedback loop, in a myriad of locations. Now, you may want to stick your head in the sand for this one and say, no, that one's too complicated. I can't do that one. However, this is a key feedback loop. This is key to blood pressure. This is key to your future pharmacology classes, key to your future patho classes. And we even discovered that COVID exploits part of this hormone feedback loop in its ability to cause disease. So do yourself a favor and ingrain this one in your memory, even if it's the only one you bother to learn long term. I hope this helps you understand the relationship and introduce the idea to you that not every hormone is released purely by an endocrine gland. There are other organs in the body that can contribute to hormone production and be critical, vital, integral components of healthy functioning feedback loops.